What's going on, everyone? Dottz Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys a brand new Magicka Necromancer PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online Waking Flame patch. So I just recently brought my MagCro back from the dead, and I've been having a ton of fun on him with this brand new build that I created. I wanted to go for something a little bit different than what you traditionally see. You see a lot of Harmony Necro, a lot of Dark Convergence Necro going around right now, but I wanted to try to make something a little bit different, something kind of similar to my Magicka Dragonknight in theory, with a build that has solid consistent damage, solid overall burst, is tanky, and is just overall very fun to play. And I do feel that I accomplished that with this build. But like I do always say, though, this is just what I like, what I use, and what I find is working for me and is enjoyable. If you want to run a different build or change something about this build to suit your playstyle better, go right ahead. But guys, before we do get into the build today, I do just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, EVE Online. EVE Online is a sci-fi MMORPG that just came out with a new update called Gateway, and Gateway improves the game in a couple of core areas, improving the new player experience, a huge update to its skill system, which is one of the game's core systems, as well as a pretty big visual overhaul. These updates are going to help new players get started in the game and plan their account's progression. The brand new player experience now is story-driven and has a lot more updated visuals, improved AI, and it's much more immersive and will help new pilots on their first steps in EVE better than the previous iterations of the game. Also, like I did mention earlier, we do have this new update for the skill plans. This will be streamlining new player advancement pretty significantly. Skill plans are now much simpler to use. They look a lot better visually, and they also help you with your goals early on in the game and help you set goals for yourself short and long term. Skill plans are an ordered list of skill levels with specific goals that you can create to follow and keep track of your training as you aim for your desired experiences and challenges in EVE. And the cool thing is that you can actually share this list of skills with other players via chat, EVE Mail, the core bulletin, etc., and just interact with all of them inside the game. And guys, if this does all sound interesting to you and you want to give this brand new player experience a try in EVE Online, you can check out the game with my link in the description or pinned comment below. All right, guys, now that we are back from the ad break, let's hop into this build, kicking things off with our monster set, and that is going to be Engine Guardian, with 1-piece health recovery, which is basically going to be useless for us, but we mainly have this for the 2-piece. When you use an ability, you have a 25% chance to summon a Dwemer Automaton to restore 531 stamina or magicka, or 1924 health to you every half second for 6 seconds, and this can occur once every 10 seconds. This set is wonderful for Magicka Necromancer. We can pretty much take advantage of all three of these, resource restoration. We do run an Ice Staff on the back bar, so the stamina is going to allow us to block for a very long time. The Magicka is going to help us out with sustain, giving us a ton of effective Magicka recovery, and the health that it gives us, on top of already having Mortal Coil and the heal over times that the Necromancer already has, gives us a disgusting amount of healing over time. So this set just works really well for MagCro. And on top of all of that stuff, it also, the automaton itself actually can be as a body and block spells for us. So on top of Blast Bones and on top of Engine Guardian, people might have a bit of a challenging time hitting us because they have to basically try and tab through these different things. So Engine Guardian is going to be good for us for all of those reasons. Now, our main offensive 5-piece on the build is going to be Heartland Conqueror, which gives us a line of spell damage, a line of magicka, a line of stamina, and increases the effectiveness of your weapon traits by 100%. So the thing that I love about Heartland is that it kind of will give you whatever... how do I explain this? It basically will give you bonuses based off of how you are choosing to trait your weapons. So Heartland is, like, for me, a hybrid offensive and defensive set because I have Sharpened on the front bar. So this gives us a crap load of extra penetration by doubling that trait, but on top of that, because I run Powered on the back bar, we get a ton of additional healing too. So Heartland I just find to be one of my favorite sets for the MagCro. It gives us a ton of additional bonus, and it's basically able to work for us offensively and defensively, which is why I do really enjoy it. Our second set is going, or excuse me, I guess our third set, second 5-piece, is going to be Daedric Trickery, and that will be present on the back bar. So this gives us a line of maximum health, a line of stamina, a line of magicka, and when you deal damage, you gain 1 of 5 random major buffs for 21 seconds for every 9 seconds. Expedition, Protection, Mending, Heroism, or Vitality. All of these buffs are extremely good for the MagCro. Protection is going to give us extra mitigation. Mending and Vitality will give us extra healing on top of our, already disgusting healing on the back bar from Heartland. And we also can get Heroism because, ults for the MagCro are always a bit more expensive, so Heroism is really good for that reason. And then Expedition is also pretty useful too, to be able to kite and, chase people down. Even though we do run Mist Form, it's always still nice to get a little bit of extra speed. So Daedric Trickery, we back bar this set. I don't really think you need it double barred. It does only proc every 9 seconds, and as long as you swap to the back bar once every 9 seconds, which I think you pretty much will be, from your dots ticking or from a light attack on your ice staff, you can proc this set and then go back to your front bar, and you could have 2 of these active on yourself at any time. So really, really have been liking Daedric Trickery for the MagCro, and I like that we can back bar it because it allows us to front bar the Master's Perfected Inferno Staff, which gives us a line of spell damage, and it reduces the cost of our Destructive Touch by 10% and increases your spell damage by 600 for 4 seconds after activating it. So Destructive Clench is going to be the primary crowd control on the build, and so obviously when we're going to CC our targets, that's typically when we're going to be going for our, big burst, maximum damage. And so basically this staff will be guaranteeing that we'll be at peak spell damage when we're going for our main kill potential. So we basically get a cumulative 703 spell damage from this set. It is a boatload of offensive pressure, and I think between this and our back bar staff enchant, because we do run a Berserker glyph on that back bar, I believe without continuous attacks, you do peak at about 5,200 spell damage, if I'm remembering correctly. So the spell damage on the build is extremely solid. I will say, though, unfortunately, right now, my stat sheet is bugged because AAA game. I run 2 Mages Guild skills on the front bar, and so unfortunately, there's a bug where the Mages Guild skills on the stat sheet will put the extra magicka on the back bar and not on the front bar. It is very annoying, but just know that when you're looking at the build, both weapon bars technically will have 32,000 magicka. So I just want to point that out if you're looking at the stats for the build. But anyway, back to the gear. Going over our traits and everything, we are running, I believe, 4 pieces of impen. 1, 2, 3, 4 impen we have here. We have 2 divines because we do run the Atro Mundus, so the 2 divines will give us a little bit of extra magicka recovery, and 1 reinforced on the heavy chest. We also do run 3 heavy, 3 light, and 1 medium. That's been a ratio that I've been liking on a lot of my Magicka characters. Feels extremely balanced between offense, defense, max undaunted. Just kind of gives us a lot of good stuff. We also have 4 prismatic glyphs, 1 on each of the big pieces, so head, chest, and legs, and then 1 on a small piece, just to give us a nice 17k stamina and then technically 32k magicka when my stat sheet doesn't look all weird. And then we have 3 regular magicka glyphs. We run 1 arcane, 2 infused, all enchanted with spell damage. Our front bar is going to be an absorb magicka glyph with a sharpened front bar. The sharpened is extremely important because we do not have a source of major breach in the build, and so that's part of the reason I did choose to go Heartland, is so that I could still get a respectable amount of penetration even while missing breach. And then back bar is going to be powered with a Berserker glyph. Front bar is going to be flame staff for clench. Back bar is going to be an ice staff. I like the ice staff for this build specifically over a sword and shield because of the fact that we're running Heartland. So we're going to be able to get a much bigger return out of doubling that weapon tree as opposed to if we were to just run a one-handed weapon, because this gives us 18% healing done. It is absolutely gross. So super like these 2 traits for the build on our weapons. Okay, now before we actually get into the skills, I just did want to switch zones so that you guys can see what that front bar maximum magicka looks like. It is at that 32k, so I did switch zones really quick just so that I could showcase that. But anyway, guys, now let's get into these skills, with our first skill being Elemental Weapon. So you infuse your weapon with power, causing your next light attack used within 2 seconds to deal an additional magic damage and apply burning, concussion, or chilled elemental status effects. But if you don't consume this, you also do restore a portion of the magicka back. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you know I'm not generally the biggest fan of Elemental Weapon, but I wanted to try it for this build because I did think it was going to be better than using something like Force Pulse or one of its morphs, and honestly, the skill is growing on me the more that I use it. It is very strong, deals a respectable amount of damage. The Psijic passives are also really, really nice to have, as I have this guy screaming in my ear that you haven't heard The Last of Us. The passives from the Psijic Order are really, really nice, and on top of that, getting a guaranteed status effect is also great. So Elemental Weapon, great spammable for the build. You can also make sure that you could basically use Elemental Weapon to prep it, follow it up by another skill, and then use the light attack with that at the same time to get, 2 big bursts of damage hitting at the same time. So it's just a really good skill, in my opinion, for the Magicka Necromancer. We also do have the Stalking Blast Bones, which are going to run at your target and explode when it gets close, dealing AoE damage. And every second that the skeleton spends chasing the target, you can increase the damage of the explosion by 10% up to a maximum of 50% more damage. So Blast Bones is obviously going to be the big burst of the build. This is going to be where we're looking for our kill moments. It's going to be Stalking Blast Bones combined with Flame Clench, which is our primary stun, deals flame damage, burning status effect, and stuns our enemies. Also is going to give us our big boost of spell damage from our Master's Destro. But we also combine that with Ice Comet, which is going to call down a comet to deal big frost damage to our enemies, knock them down, stun them for 2 seconds, and reduce their movement speed by 50%, as well as leave a dot on the ground. So the big combo for this build is going to be Blast Bones into Ice Comet into Clench. The Clench will stun the target, which will then allow the Ice Comet to land, which will then allow the Blast Bones to deal full damage. So all 3 of those things will be hitting at the exact same time for you to get big damage. So that is going to be the primary burst between these 3 skills. We also do run the Skeletal Arcanist. This is going to give us some consistent damage by having us have the Mage up. The Mage will attack your closest enemy every 2 seconds, dealing damage, shock damage to them and other nearby enemies. So part of the thing that I like about the Arcanist, on top of this being some consistent pressure, it's essentially kind of like a dot on the build, but it deals AoE damage, which I do like about that. So as, you're fighting and 1vxing and this, target stacking up, the Skeletal Arcanist will be dealing AoE consistent pressure. So I do really like it for that reason. Plus, I just think it looks really cool. So very, very good skill for the build. We also do have Degeneration as one of our primary dots, as well as a source of major sorcery. And part of the reason that I like Degeneration and Ice Comet on the front bar is because we do run Daedric Trickery on the back bar, with the 4th line being Maximum Magicka. And I don't like when my Magicka pools are too drastically different between the bars. And so the cool thing is that this gives us 1,000 Magicka on the front bar. And then with these 2 skills on the front bar, our Magicka pools are both almost exactly 32k. They're both a little bit above 32k on both bars, which is really nice. We also do get the extra Magicka recovery on that front bar from these Mages Guild skills. So having these for the passives is also going to be really, really nice. Moving on to the back bar, we have Mortal Coil, which gives us a huge heal over 12 seconds, as well as restoring stamina over 12 seconds while siphoning the corpse. We have to use this on a corpse, so this will either be from our armor buff, Blast Bones, the Arcanist, or the Mender. So this heal combined with the Engine Guardian heal is going to give you a sickening amount of healing over time. This also restores some stamina. It increases healing done by 3%, which will make our Resistant Flesh, which is our burst heal for even more. It's just an amazing skill to have for our hot. We also do have Resistant Flesh, which gives us a big burst heal, but applies Minor Defile for 4 seconds, reducing your healing received by 8%. But we also do get the amount of spell and physical resistance equal to half the amount healed for 3 seconds. Because our healing in this build is so ginormous, between having Powered on the back bar and between having the 2 major buffs from Daedric Trickery that affect healing, you can get some pretty massive resistant values from Resistant Flesh. And the fact that it has Minor Defile on it really isn't a big deal, simply due to the Curative Curse passive. So while you have a negative effect on you, your healing done is increased by 8%. So it doesn't really matter, to be honest. So Resistant Flesh is just a fantastic burst heal, really strong one. And if you have any of those healing passes from Trickery, you are going to be healing for a ton. We also do have the Spirit Guardian on the back bar. Spirit Guardian, in my opinion, one of the best skills in the game. This is going to give you a hot healing over time every 2 seconds for 16 seconds. But on top of that, you get 10% damage reduction outside of the major minor system. It is just a unique 10% built-in buffer of the Swift for the class. So it just gives us a ton of effective tankiness, which allows us to, run some other sets and not have to worry overly about defensive prowess, just because we are getting so much defense from this ability. It's incredibly strong. You need to maintain this ability at all times. If you don't, you will find yourself feeling significantly squishier. We also do have Summoner's Armor as our major resolve buff. Also, because we do run Blastbones, the Mender, and the Mage in this build, Summoner's Armor is going to be great to reduce those costs by 15%, just to kind of help out with some sustain. So definitely going to be the better of the two armor buffs here. I do run Elusive Mist on the build. I do really like Mist form for my slower Magicka characters. This will allow us to kite out of our Magicka pool, reducing damage taken by 75%, giving us major expedition and allowing us to move unimpeded. Just love Elusive Mist. It's one of my favorite skills in the game. I think it's a fantastic kiting tool for Magicka characters. You could also use this in really cheeky ways, like Backlash from Templars is hitting super hard right now. And so if you know that a Templar is hitting you for a ton of damage and that Backlash is going to pop really big, you can go into Elusive Mist, dampen the pop, and then come back out. So just an amazing kiting skill. If you don't want to use Mist form here, you can absolutely use Race Against Time, but I do personally really like Mist form. Our backbar ultimate is going to be Ravenous Goliath. I love using this skill. It is so freaking strong. This increases your maximum health by 30k for 20 seconds and also healing you immediately for 30k. Now, while transformed, your damaging light attacks will restore health and heavy attacks will restore more health. And you also deal magic damage over time to enemies nearby you and you heal for that amount. So when you go into Goliath form, between the Goliath, Mortal Coil, Engine Guardian, Spirit Guardian, you and the amount of healing that the Goliath deals, like you are not gonna die. Like you can tank out so many people and you're basically unkillable in this form. So you are able to just completely focus on your offense. Let me tell you, the Goliath form deals a surprising amount of damage. And so the Goliath form combined with your constant pressure from the Arcanist, Degeneration, Blastbones, elemental weapons, like this is an extremely good ultimate if you find yourself very heavily outnumbered. It deals a lot of damage and you're basically unkillable during that time. So very good ultimate on the back bar. I've actually found myself using it quite a lot, so I do really like it. Also does look super badass, which definitely does help. Now, going on to our front bar, and I'm glad to see my stat sheet isn't bugged here. In Deshawn, we have 32,000 maximum Magicka, 28.3k max health with 17k stamina. We have 1557 Magicka recovery, 3300 spell damage. This is all just unbuffed, just standard around, guys. We have 10k spell pen, 17k spell resist, and 12.9k physical resist with 1800 crit resist. Keep in mind that the Magicka recovery is going to go up with the pet out because of Undead Confederate. Your spell damage is going to spike heavily between major sorcery, the destructive what's it called? Destructive Impact. I just blanked out for a second. The Destructive Impact set and your spell damage glyph on the back bar in your resistances are going to go up based off of your armor buff and resistant flesh. You're going to get a lot of effective tankiness from major protection through trickery as well as the Spirit Mender. So stats on the build, in my opinion, I do really like them. I think they look solid. We got all 64 points into Magicka. We have the Atronach Mundus for some additional Magicka recovery. We also, like I said, do run Vampire Stage 1. And then we do run the Clockwork Citrus Fillet buff food. Thankfully, we don't need Tri-Stat food, which is really nice, because both Trickery and Heartland have stamina bonuses in them. And so between those two lines of stamina plus the 4 prismatics we're able to run, I don't need to run Tri-Stat food to get a respectable stamina pool, which allows me to run Clockwork Citrus Fillet for even more sustain. Race-wise, I'm going to have to recommend the Breton. I think the Breton is extremely good for MagCro. I think the extra Magicka recovery as well as cost reduction is extremely valuable for the class, especially when you consider the fact that the pets are a bit on the expensive side. And so having that massive boost to your cost reduction from the Breton is extremely helpful, which allows me to focus more on damage and less on sustain through my gear choices. Now, anyway, guys, moving into our champion points. For our offensive points, we are going to be running Master at Arms for direct damage increase. We're dealing most of our damage with Blastbones, Ice Comet, Elemental Weapons, so these are all going to be buffed up by Master at Arms. We also do run Biting Aura for increased AoE damage. This is because our primary burst combo is through AoE skills, which is going to be Blastbones and Ice Comet, so Biting Aura will buff those too. Defensively, I do run Duelist Rebuff for single target damage reduction from something like Nightblades, Mag Swords, etc. And then we run Ironclad to reduce direct damage, since basically every skill that we're scared of in the current meta deals direct damage. And so because of that, Ironclad is extremely helpful. Red CP wise, I do run Balanced Vitality for 1400 max health, Survival Instincts to give us 25% cost reduction on block, dodge, roll, sprint, break free, etc. when we are inflicted with a status effect, which will be very frequently during a 1vx or small scale. Sustained by Suffering to increase our recoveries while we're under the effects of a negative effect. So basically, while actively PvPing, we'll get 150 extra recoveries. And then Pain's Refuge to reduce our damage taken by 1% per negative effect on us up to a maximum of 20%. Again, while solo small scale, you're going to have a ton of negative effects on you, which allows you to get a lot of benefit out of Pain's Refuge. And green CP is going to be up to you. Now, in terms of a rotation for the build, rotation is going to be focused on maintaining lots of things on Necro. Necro, you got to maintain a lot of stuff. You want to maintain Summoner's Armor, Spirit Guardian, Mortal Coil, Degeneration, and Skeletal Arcanist. All of these things need to be maintained to maximize your offensive capabilities, defensive capabilities, as well as your sustain. And especially, I cannot possibly explain how important it is to maintain the Spirit Guardian. You will notice a significant damage reduction decrease if you do not maintain this. This is one of the most important skills on the build to maintain because so much of your tankiness is baked into that skill. Now, like I said earlier, guys, outside of maintaining all of those things, the goal combo you are looking for is going to be Blast Bones, Ice Comet, and Flame Clench. The Flame Clench will then stun, allowing the Comet and the Blast Bones to hit at the same time and deal massive damage. Outside of that combo, you're basically just looking for Elemental Weapon weaving with your light attacks, combined with just continually firing off Blast Bones, clenching to stun your opponent on cooldown and just get that pressure rolling and just keep pressuring them. The good thing is that, the combo of Ellie Weapon and Blast Bones will offer a relative amount of consistent pressure on their own, but you'll have a good amount of consistent dot pressure from Degeneration and Arcanist continually ticking on your opponents, as well as we got the Burning Status effect. And so, because of that, we do have still a respectable amount of consistent damage outside of our primary burst. I also do recommend, if you are going to be playing in a group, to replace Ice Comet with Glacial Colossus, simply because Major Vulnerability is an extremely good thing to have in a group. I also do just want to mention something. I actually was originally testing this build on stream with Malakath, but if you've watched my stream, you might have remembered that, but I actually did swap it out for Engine Guardian, and ironically enough, after dueling one of my friends, he said that the damage difference felt pretty negligible between having Malakath and running Engine Guardian, which is kind of funny, because Malakath is just a flat damage increase. He said damage didn't feel that much different, but I was a lot harder to kill because of the Engine Guardian, which is why I did make that swap from Malakath to EG, and I just wanted to talk about that really quick, just because I was running that on stream, and so just in case people were curious. But guys, on that note, I do think that is going to be it for me today. The updated horror build for the Waking Flame patch. Let me tell you, man, Magicka Necro has been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. And depending on how things change in quarter 4 with ESO, I've heard some rumblings about certain balance changes that may be coming to the game that I'm not the biggest fan of. The MagCro definitely has some main potential for me, honestly. I find the class very enjoyable to play. It's really, really fun. And yeah, I just think you guys will like the build. Like I said, this is something a little bit different. It's not your typical Harmony, Dark Convergence, MagCro. I tried to make something a little bit different and something that I would find fun. And personally, I really like the build. It's very solid. And if you guys want something a little bit different outside of just the constant Dark Convergence BS, then I think you guys will enjoy this build. And if you guys did like this video, I'd appreciate if you smacked a like on it. Any questions, please leave a comment below. And guys, for more ESO as well as other MMO content, hit that sub button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. And do not forget to check out the EVE Online link in the pinned comment as well as the description below, and check out that game to support the channel. But guys, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.